I was born in Melton Mowbray, which at that time in the UK, at that time, that was a little town of 15,000 people with one church, one chapel, one fish and chip shop, and one grocer's shop, what we call a grocery store, which was still, like you come into the shop and there's a wooden counter and you stand there and they go in the back and you read off your list and they bring you the things. And back then, I was born in 1951, end of 51. Back then in Melton, ladies still put silk dresses with long sleeves to go have tea with each other. It was a different world. And my family was quite unusual. Most people would have been born and brought up in Melton, and my parents were both from London. My mother was born in a slum in South London, and she was in the Anglican. That's like Episcopalian in the American way. But we have found out that my mother is partly Indian, from India, that her grandmother was from Trinidad, and those Indians were brought over to Trinidad as indentured workers in the rice fields or sugarcane fields. And she fell in love and was brought to London. And she had to be kept indoors because she would become so dark in her color, which was not cool in that time and place. My father is Jewish, and he was born, I think he was sort of born in the suburbs, but his parents were born in the ghetto. It wasn't really a ghetto, like a ghetto with a wall and a gate, but the people that... Okay, we have to really go back to Ruchel and Yoina, my great-grandparents. When they were 16, the Cossacks were coming into Poland, and a group of young people left, and they walked out of Poland. And they walked to Germany, and they wanted to settle in Germany, but the German Jews didn't want them. They didn't want these illiterate peasants. Actually, my great-grandfather wasn't illiterate, but, uneducated Yiddish-speaking peasants to come and join them. So they kept walking, which saved our lineage, right? Okay, so I became a nun, and then, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. So I was going to be a nun. And then my parents wanted me to be a professor. But then I had another of these experiences where I had been out rowing, and I was walking along to the boathouse, and I had an oar on each shoulder, and suddenly this voice came out of the heavens and said, "You will be a healer. You'll heal people like Jesus did, and you'll go to a distant land and be a healer." So I came home and I said, I'm going to be a doctor. And so that's what I did. I went to medical school, St. Bartholomew's Hospital Medical School, which is a top London medical school. I went to the same medical school where my grandfather had been a lab technician. But I just told them my grandfather had been there, and I think they probably thought he'd been a doctor and not a lab technician, so I got in, even despite how snobbish that society is. So I went all through medical school, but from the beginning of clinical, it wasn't really what I wanted to do. But I like to finish things when I start them. So I went all through medical school, but while I was in medical school, I went and lived in a convent, and I became like a postulant, which is the first step of being a nun. So I was in medical school and being a postulant, and I was commuting from Kensington Square, upscale end of London, to east end of London, where the hospital was. And I would do my prayers and everything that you had to do as a nun, And then I'd drink coffee and stay up till 11 in the library studying for medical school. And then I'd get up at 5:30 or 6 for my prayers. And that's how medical school was. So I finished all of medical school, and I did my, in England, then you have to do a year of your rotations. So you're working, I got good rotations, which meant I only worked 80 hours a week instead of 100. So you're on your little prayer stool, and you're trying to meditate, you're like, and then your beeper goes, and you got to run. So at this point, I decided I couldn't get contemplation and action together. So after I finished everything for my full registration as a physician, I went and joined a Cistercian abbey, the same order as Thomas Merton. So I was there for, I think it was a year and a half. And that abbey is now closed. It was extremely old-fashioned. Everyone in there had been, in my entire lifetime, the youngest nun had been that whole time in the abbey. So they had never experienced the postmodern world, the world of after Hiroshima, the world that could cease to be on a count of 10. They had never experienced that world that I grew up in. So that I think that's why it closed, was because they couldn't relate to what I see as a new kind of human that came forth after that experience. Our generation and younger. So I left there. And I think the other reason why I left was because I had never in my whole life not been around Jewish people before. I was very culturally different. They couldn't really understand. I was back to these clashes and trying to pick one side, one stream of ancestry didn't work. And then we met Sheikh Nur, and this whole Sufi thing started happening. So we took bayat, we took hand, we entered the Sufi order of the Halvati Jirahi dervishes with Sheikh Nur. So then I was a Hindu Christian Sufi. And we also started spending more and more time at the Boulder Shambhala Center. So then I was a Hindu Christian Sufi Buddhist. So at this point, we're in probably 1993. I could go into any church, temple, or mosque in the world and be fully accepted as a member of that religion. But I was petrified to go into a synagogue because of not being accepted. Because I'm a patrilineal Jew, as were Ephraim and Manasseh, in fact. Their mother was an Egyptian princess. So it doesn't make any sense to me, but there we go. And at that point, Sadananda and I both started I had a dream about Moses. I met Moses and he poured the blood of the covenant on me. It was a pretty important dream. All this blood was splashed on me. So then I was a Hindu Christian, Jewish, Sufi, Buddhist, and that's sort of been my place. And Sheikh Nur said, you will receive the quintuple crown. He said, you will attain what is regarded as realization in all those traditions. So he gave me that sort of like big job to do. But what it's really about for me, and it's interesting you said you don't want me to talk about theology, because I couldn't. Because which theology would I speak of? I live in the place beyond religion where all traditions shine. And when you live in that space beyond religion, you can enter You can enter in, you can participate from the depths of your heart in any tradition, but you're not bound by any one because you know the others. What happens is people go through a certain door, and they go through a certain door, and they have the aha, they have the darshan, they have the great experience, and they come back and they say, this is the door. What happened is I went through this door. Everyone should go through this door. But because I've been through all these doors, because I've seen the same light through all these windows, that's why I understand it. It's not about the door. It's not about the window. It's not about form. It's not about the theology. It's not about the belief system. It's not about the words we use to describe the undescribable. It's about the place that we come to when we go through any of those doors, or we look through any of those. There's the same light through all these different stained glass windows. Or Raghudas, my guru, once said, you're on the train going from Pune to Bombay. In the compartment, there are Hindus, there are Muslims, there are Sikhs, there are Jains, there are Christians. Some are eating veg, some are eating non-veg, and some are eating bread and butter, Western food. They will all get down at Bombay. But that was his very, very most important teaching. Not to be bound or limited by any one of these being better or more important. So that's in my faith journey, if it is, I guess it's faith. It's about this place where all the traditions shine and you can enter into the heart of each one. But my God is the human being, really. I think that the religion that we're really coming into is simply love and compassion and kindness, and to understand that our God is in everyone. It says that in the Epistle of John, it says, how can you say you love the God you do not see if you cannot love the brother that you see? Yeah, I have a message that the ultimate true nature of everything is nothing but love and compassion. And that's why I just want to be a portrait of a fellow human, because that's every single human being in the whole world is capable of actualizing love and compassion. Every single one of us. And that's really what our life is about. And it's the only thing that can make us happy. Cars won't make us happy. Houses won't make us happy. What are they called? 401ks? Those things won't make us happy. Only love and compassion can make us happy.